What are some amazing opening lines in literature? In this video, I want to do a deep dive into what makes a great opening line, what's the use of it, and what are some of the classic novels that were established around some pretty heavy-hitting lines. Usually, I like to do shorter content on my Instagram channel or on my podcast, everything under Lit with Charles. Check out those channels if you get a chance. But in this video, I want to do a deep dive into certain elements of literature, maybe authors or certain books. And today we're going to talk about opening lines because they're so important. And so I'm just going to kind of rant off and share with you some of my thoughts around why I think opening lines are important, what makes them great, what makes them work, and what books are associated with some of the best opening lines. I think the first and most important thing about an opening line is it's got to grab the reader. It's got to stand out. It's got to take your attention away from the real world around you and into the book that you're reading. And it's not easy to do that. I think a lot of authors probably struggle a lot with opening lines. And a great opening line will depend on what authors are trying to achieve with it. I mean, we've just established that, yeah, they're trying to grab you, but grab you how? Tell you what? What is the key message that they're trying to send to you and trying to prime your brain ahead of reading their book? And so you got to kind of think about what these opening lines are doing for you in terms of getting you into the book. And I think as you read any book from here on in, hopefully you'll kind of stop at the opening line and ask yourself, wait, what did this opening line just do for me? What does it reveal? You know, one of the greatest crimes in opening lines in books or in cinema is like, oh, the alarm clock goes off and the character wakes up. That's like one of the cheapest ways, most cliched ways of getting people, starting a story. Oh, the person's woken up, so great. Now I'm in a story that's just started. So a lot of the authors I'm going to talk about today, they were able to create certain elements around their characters or their settings or the general vibe or the morality of the book in such simple ways that grab the reader, but also firmly established some elements of the books. So for example, if I look at a writer that might have tried to establish a sense of balance. You take the classic Charles Dickens novel, A Tale of Two Cities. Right there in the title, all is said. It's a tale of two cities. There's going to be a city A and a city B. In this case, it's London and Paris in the throes of the French Revolution. And the contrast between the two cities is essentially what Dickens is going to examine throughout the book, right? And so what he does with his opening line is super clever. And he opens it with, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of foolishness, it was the age of wisdom. Every time there's a contrast, every time there's a balance, there's an equilibrium between bad times, good times, wisdom, foolishness, London, Paris. And so immediately that tone is set. And you got to remember that Dickens, when he wrote this, I think in 1859 or so, a lot of times he was reading this out loud. And so that you can imagine that performance would have been done in quite a dramatic way with tone changes. As he's saying, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So you can have immediately that sense of like, wow, we're going to be in a book where there's a clear contrast between London, Paris, and all those different contrasts. If we look at maybe authors that were examining the sociological aspects of the worlds they lived in and who wanted to push a certain thesis or hypothesis onto the reader and be like, hey, you know what, I have a point of view about what my society is like, and I'm gonna dissect that society, but I want to open up with a clear idea of what I think society is like. And so one author who does that really well is Leo Tolstoy in the novel Anna Karenina. And the novel opens with a line that's like, all happy families are alike, but each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Wow, incredible. Like, that's a very broad sociological statement. You can have philosophers debate this for years. Is it true? You know, what are the key metrics of a happy family, or how are unhappy families unhappy? But he's proposing this thesis, and essentially what he's going to do throughout the book is look at his characters and the settings and the plot through that thesis. And he's going to find out that, yeah, each unhappy family, whether it's Anna Karenina's family and her marriage, and her that leads to an affair, or other families featured in the novel, they're all going to have their individual markers, and the thesis is going to be fulfilled. Another author who does this in a similar way, slightly more satirical, slightly more humoristic, is Jane Austen with her classic novel Pride and Prejudice, published in 1813. And the novel opens with a line that's like, it is a universal truth, well acknowledged, that a single man with a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Okay, and so immediately Jane Austen's setting a tone of satire around a universal law, supposedly, devised surely by the very patriarchal society that she was living in at the time, that like, oh yeah, a dude that's got a lot of money is surely, in search of a wife. And, as if, that's kind of the end all be all of society, and marriage is the highest institution, and so on. So there's a satirical tone in there. There's also a setting, an analysis of, hey, is this really true? Like, is that really what the ultimate aim of people in, in this era, in this English era? Is that really what they want? And so, of course, it sets out asking that question. It also establishes one of the main characters of the story, Mr. Darcy. He's a good-looking guy who, likes to take his shirt off and has a big fortune and so on, and a dashing man and so on. Is he really in want of a wife, or is he going to have to be convinced by some of these ladies who are after him? So, so I love how that question is set by Jane Austen in this really cool way. You can also use an opening line, and a lot of authors, great authors, have done some incredible opening line just to kind of set the vibe askew. Like, whoa, hold on. You think you're here, but actually, no, buddy, you're over there. And so if I think of the opening line to the fantastic novel, my favorite novel of all time, 1984 by George Orwell, we all kind of are familiar with the setting. It's a futuristic dictatorship run by the notorious omnipresent dictator Big Brother, and so we're in a vibe where every element of the world, every element of society is controlled and has been deformed by this dictatorship. And the book opens with a line that's basically like, it was a cold morning in April and the clocks had just struck 13. And you're like, hold on, wait a minute. Clocks don't strike 13. Like, what is that? Something weird is happening here. Something weird has happened to something fundamental like time. Time has been changed, tweaked weirdly to include the number 13, which is like this weird, somewhat sinister, unlucky prime number that just sets an uncomfortable vibe for everyone. And so what is this with this number 13 on the clock? And so just with that one sentence, Orwell is saying, guys, buckle up for the ride. you're in weirdo land now, and this is like a nasty dictatorship that I'm going to take you through. So I think that's super powerful. You've got a similar opening line that sets the tone in a completely different way. That is from The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, which goes something like, there was a hole in the earth, and in the hole lived a hobbit. And you're like, okay, wait a second. What's a hobbit? I don't know what it is, but it sounds kind of a bit magical, mythical. Cool. And these hobbits live in the ground. That's super weird. So what's going on here? And just with that one sentence, J.R.R. Tolkien opens an entire world of Middle Earth to the reader, and he's gonna slowly build that world step by step, but he opens it with this single hole in the ground in which lives a hobbit. Super powerful and grabs you. It grabs you. You're like, I need to know more. What's a hobbit? So those are some two great opening lines that open the line with regard to setting. There's an incredible opening line that establishes a book in terms of characters. And there are a couple that I can think of in here. The first is from the novel Moby Dick by Herman Melville. And just side note, people tend to think, oh, Moby Dick, Herman Melville, that's like an old novel, probably boring, probably long-winded, and so on. No. This is like such a fascinating, gripping book. You can't put it down. It's told in an amazing way. But anyway, let's just come back to its opening line, which is an all-time classic. The opening line of Moby Dick is, "Call me Ishmael." 3 words. And in those 3 words, a lot is said. A lot. First of all, you are told as a reader that you are part of the conversation. This character Ishmael is speaking to you, the reader, and is telling you to call him Ishmael. So it's an introduction, and call me Ishmael. And you've got this rapport now. You're in the story through this narrator. He's going to take you on the story, and so get ready for this story to be led by this character Ishmael. This other thing, though, about the name Ishmael is super interesting. The guy's name is not John or Bob or Bill. It's Ishmael. I don't know any Ishmaels, and you probably don't either. It's an old, ancient, biblical name. So right away, Herman Melville is telling you, we're not going to be dealing in day-to-day problems like what your grocery lists look like. We're going to be dealing with mega big biblical questions that concern a God. We're going to be looking at good versus evil here. We're going to be looking at biblical quests that go against, God, smiting people, powerful forces. That is all encapsulated in that one word, Ishmael. And so in those 3 words, Herman Melville sets the tone right now in terms of the tone of the book, the setting, the scope, the scale, the stakes. Everything is said. Another book that does this absolutely brilliantly with one single opening line is the book The Stranger by Albert Camus, published, I think, in the early 1940s. And Albert Camus was an existentialist philosopher, and so, he was really talking about the absurdity of life and how that absurdity was fundamentally alienating to the individual who had trouble fitting into society. So hence the term the stranger, which in the original French was l'étranger. And l'étranger is a great word in French because it encapsulates the various words that have been used at different times to translate this book into English. At times it's been the stranger, at times it's been the outsider, at times it's been the foreigner. So it includes all of these words into a single word. So you're in a book about a guy who doesn't fit into society. He's an outsider, okay? And so you need to set that vibe very quickly. If you're Camus, how do you set that vibe? Very clearly with the following opening line, which in French, the original French was something like, Aujourd'hui, maman est morte, ou peut-être hier, je ne sais plus, which translates in English as today, mother died, or maybe yesterday, I'm not sure. And again, I'll come back to the word mother in a second, but essentially what you're seeing here is an opening line where the character is saying to the reader, you know, one of the most major moments of any human's life, the death of a mother, which is like such a seminal, singular event in anyone's life, is like your own personal 9/11. Everybody remembers where they were at the moment of 9/11. This is your 9/11. Your mother has just died. And this guy's like, you know, I'm not even sure if it was today or yesterday. I'm not sure. And immediately you know, whoa, I'm dealing with an outsider. I'm dealing with someone who's not quite attuned to the customs, the mores, the emotions of human society. So that for me is a super powerful way to open this book and present this vibe of strangeness and alienation. There's another great opening line from another book that does this very similar job, and that is the opening line of Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis, published in 1915. For those of you who don't know the story of this book, it's basically about a guy who has become a bug, a giant bug, and it is very much in line with the literature of Kafka. Kafka was a guy who was Czech. He lived mostly in Prague, and he was the first to look at the oppressive element of modern bureaucracy in society as being extremely oppressive and alienating against the individual. And so he wrote of these societies, or they might be best described as systems, where the individual could never quite get a footing and could never feel safe and was always kind of on the verge of being shunned by society because of a minor transgression or something. And so in this book, The Metamorphosis, the main character has turned into a bug. And this is the principal vector of alienation, so that people are like, whoa, this dude's a bug. We don't want to hang out with a huge bug. So the opening line is essentially, when he woke up, Gregor Samsa had become a bug. And so here, I hear what you're saying is like, wait a minute. Earlier you told us you can't open a novel with somebody waking up. True, until you can break that rule. Any rules are made to be broken, and you break it by adding something that is so fundamentally left field and different to that cliche of someone waking up. You wake up, but you're a bug. And that contrast, that crazy contrast, encapsulates Franz Kafka in a sentence and sets the tone for the rest of the book. This dude's a bug, and we're about to find out how he's going to navigate life. And he invented that weirdness, that very strange, oppressive sense in literature. That was Kafka. I might finish with a fantastic opening line from a more modern book, and that is Neuromancer by William Gibson, published in 1984. I wanted to bring something a little bit more modern to the mix. I only included classics because actually, you know, those opening lines really stand the test of time. And have been, you know, viewed and reviewed and thought about and so on. And so we've all kind of agreed throughout time that these are some great lines. But so I want to do something a little bit more modern to illustrate another great example. So Neuromancer by William Gibson was the novel that invented cyberpunk. Cyberpunk, as the title indicates, is deeply enmeshed in technology. So it's kind of a punk dystopian world where technology may or may not have run amok. And so before the worries on AI, this was the world that William Gibson lived in. The world of computers had just started. What were computers going to do? How were they going to take over? How were they going to influence not just our day-to-day lives, but our sense of aesthetics, our sense of morality, and so on. And the book opens with this incredible opening line, which is the color of the sky above the port was the color of TV. The sky above the port was the color of TV tuned into a dead channel. And immediately you're like, whoa, okay, like the sky above the port, I'm picturing a painting by Turner or something, you know, like a beautiful oil painting and you know, a sunset or something. But here, I'm in a world where technology is so encroaching that it's even taken over the description of the color of the sky above the port. And again, immediately you're like, okay, from here on in, I'm fully expecting everything to be colored literally by technology. So those are all my favorite opening lines. And I love so many of them for different reasons in terms of how they establish different things and how they grip the reader and tell the reader very clearly from the start, this is what you're in for, and get ready for this incredible ride. I'd love to hear from any of you. What are your favorite opening lines, or some of them I might have forgotten to mention today? There's some incredible ones throughout literature. Please share them in the comments. Let us know what they mean to you, how you think they establish something for the novel. And please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed the content. Tell your friends, tell your family, subscribe, and check out my podcast, check out my Substack newsletter. Lit with Charles is across the internet on Instagram, Spotify, Substack. You can find me anywhere. And always, please subscribe. It's great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot. Bye.